Good evening and welcome to the first of our races of 2021. We are racing today at Portugal, and this is round 10 of the Acoria Gaming League F1 2021 Season 1. At the end of last year, we had our last race in Brazil. Started quite strong for Humid and Ladmine, the two of them topping the timing tables once again in quali, separated by only a hundredth of a second. Beyond that, KQ Microstatic didn't get as good a lap as he had the previous couple of rounds, finishing in third, Sketchy Dude in fourth, and Venom finishing in fifth. Last time out was Marcus's last race for this season. Unfortunately, it did not go very well, with him ending the quali session at the back of the grid. Beyond that, we had the race. It was a very interesting race to watch. Wet or intermediate weather all the way through, with Ladmine making the best of the situation, coming out in first, Sketchy Dude second, Sebi in third. Sebi actually put in a really good performance but had quite a bit of damage through the race, as you can see from the number of his pit stops. KQ Microstatic, if I recall correctly, did end up being taken out, and that's why he ended up quite far back from where he started, or one position back. TJ ended up in fifth, and Humid ended in sixth, so not taking a great number of points from there. Further back, Gur in seventh, Venom in eighth, Moss in ninth. Michael Faree finished 10th after not having a great race and deciding he had nothing to lose, going on to the softs and honestly giving us all quite a show with all his donuts. Porty finished in 11th, just plodding along, getting through to the end of the race, many pit stops for damage, and also trying those soft tires towards the end. So our driver standings as they are, Landmine takes the top spot once again with 160 points. That's ahead, taking that away from Humid, 11 points gap between the two of them, so I'm sure Humid will be hoping for a strong session out today. Sebi sitting in third, still very much in the fight, with a chance if things go his way, and without any chance of being caught from behind. KQ Microstatic has stamped his authority onto the league, up in fourth already with fewer races than a lot of the other guys around him. Moss in fifth, Jarvis in sixth place. Jarvis unfortunately is having technical issues with his game, so he is replaced by Ark today. Lion Lamb in 8th, Venom 9th, Sketchy Dude in 10th, also doing quite well, climbing quite quickly, so it will be interesting to see what he can do today. Afrodox in 11th, Kixie in 12th, IMTJ in 13th, also quite a newcomer, doing a very good job with the AlphaTauri that he has been racing in, although today he will be in the Mercedes replacing Marcus. Steven in 14th, has not made it to quali. Hopefully he'll be able to join us later on. Michael Faree in 15th, not having a great season, but let's see if he can turn it around today. Marcus in 16th, obviously he will not be joining us for the rest of the season, so that number of points, that 20 points is where he's going to finish. Gur right behind him, a point behind him. Lucius in 18th, he has not come back, so he has been replaced as well. Alicia in 19th, definitely looking to move up the field, and Porty down in 20th. The team standings, McLaren sitting at the top with 193 points. Mercedes in second place with 180, only 13 points off, and definitely looking to push things along. Ferrari sitting in third, taking third away from Haas once again with 145 points. Haas sitting on 139. Red Bull not having a great season, down in fifth with 92 points. Aston Martin 61. AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo fighting each other, down in seventh and eighth. AlphaTauri on 45 points, taking that little bit of a lead in the previous session. And Alfa Romeo dropping after a not so great performance. Williams and Alpine bring up the rear, both with 35 points, so any point that either of those teams get will actually lead to them taking that position. So the track today is Portimao. It is the Portuguese Grand Prix. It is a very twisty technical track. A very interesting track to race. Lots of spins likely to happen today with the changes of elevation and the very technical corners. Even the start-finish straight is on a hill, so you can't climb up to it and then drop straight down into turn one. Two DRS zones, very strong DRS zones here, quite long. And with that front straight being so long, it means that we are likely to get some racing down towards turn one, which is a very aggressive turn. So that is how things stand. That is where we're racing. Welcome to round 10. Let's head to the guys that are running around for quali. Alrighty, so at the moment, as you can see, Landmine sitting at the top of the timing table with a 116.990. He managed to secure the best sector 2. Sebi is sitting in second with a 117.016. No best sectors listed for him on that lap. IMTJ sitting in third with a 117.401. He has secured the best of sector 3. So the sector's split between quite a few people at the moment. Landmine, Sebi, and Humid leading at the top. IMTJ sitting in fourth. KQ Microstatic in fifth. Sketchy Dude in sixth. As you can see, our gaps are quite small at the moment. With Sebi only 25 thousandths off the pace. Humid sitting at 3/10 off the pace. IMTJ at 4th, KQ Microstatic at 4, Sketchy Dude 7/10 back, and Michael the first person to be over a second back, and he's down in 7th. So the top 6 separated by less than a second. I'm sure which along this track is actually incredibly good to see. With how technical it is, with how many elevation changes there are, it is a very difficult track to keep close. And it will be a very difficult track for people to get consistent laps in. So let's see who is out on a lap in the top half of the grid. Humid looks like he is invalidated, so let's see if he is about to start on his next flying lap. Getting through turn 15 and into the pits, so that's not a great start for our choices. Alrighty, this looks like it is a lap. Michael down to 50% of his ERS already. So going through turn number 8 and down towards the little kink that is turn number 9. As you can see, the elevation changes are violent all the way around this lap, with some very interesting corners where it's so easy to lose the rear back end. So your setup has to be exactly right and your balance has to be perfect. If you shoot up the tires a little too early, you end up spinning out and then cooking the tires, and it's very difficult on this track with all the turns to cool those tires down again. So Michael goes through and finishes with a 1:17.367. That takes him up to 4th place. Not a bad lap, but I'm sure he will want to go around again before the end of the session to get another lap in. So behind him we see Ark coming out to go on his warm-up lap. As you saw there, he actually just crossed the white line. It is so easy to invalidate your lap on this track. And there again, he would have invalidated the lap again. So it is very, very, very difficult to keep the car inside the track limits on this track, especially with the difficulty in balance. That turn that he's just gone through, turn number 8, is one of the most difficult on the track. I'm sure we will be seeing many people spinning out on that turn. So Sebi sitting in 2nd place at the moment. He is heading out on his warm-up track, just going through turn number 8 and down towards 9. We'll stick with him as he gears up to go. That previous turn was turn 11, and interestingly it is a corner that actually has 2 apexes, and they are numbered separately. There is 10, the corner just before, and then 11. That's on the apexes is where the corner numbers are set over there, rather than the fact that it looks like a single fairly wide corner. This next one, on the other hand, is a single corner called turn 14. It does have a proper name, however I'm not confident enough to pronounce it. Turn 15 is the end of that corner that Sebi has just gone through, so let's see what he can do as he heads out on his lap down towards turn 1, down that hill. As you can see, very quick turn in and gets through 1 and 2 and into 3. Seems like he's kept it inside the track, stays towards the inside of the next couple of corners and onto the back straight. DRS open as he heads down towards turn number 5 through the hairpin. Quite a difficult hairpin to keep inside the track. Manages without losing much time getting the fastest first sector of the session. So this looks like it is a strong lap from Sebi as he goes through 8 and down towards 9. The Alpine getting nicely out of the way there, but possibly a little bit late, putting Sebi's entry a little bit too far to the inside of that corner. He will have lost a little bit of time there. However, going through sector 2, he still gets the fastest sector 2 of the session. So this is a blistering lap despite the little bit of traffic that he's come across. Into turn 14 now, down towards the hill into the kink that is 15. This is almost would normally be something that you wouldn't even see them worrying about in an F1 car, but because of the elevation changes it makes it a little bit more difficult. But that lap is as fast as it looked, and Sebi goes to the top of the timing table with a 1:16.538. He has already, however, that is a spin, and just keeping it out of the wall into that looked like out of turn 1 into turn 2. And that looks like it's landmine going through, and this is going to be his attempt to take that top lap back from Sebi. So let's follow him around as he goes through corner 4 and down towards 5, gets right across that curb there, loses a little bit of traction on the exit of turn 5, as you saw, with a little bit of wheel spin on the back end there. That will have heated his tires a little bit, so he will be having a little bit of less acceleration as he goes through sector 2, through corner 9, 10, 11 now, down towards the sector end. He is 0.17 seconds up. I do believe that's on his own time, so that is not a great lap, although he does look like he is still pushing it as he goes through 14 and down towards 15. Let's see where he puts himself. I do not believe this is going to be fast enough to get past Sebi, and it looks like he has decided that as well and heads back into the pits. So on the outlap, we have Lion Lamb at the moment, so let's follow him through Sector 3 and see what he can do on his next flying lap. So up the hill towards the start-finish line, Lion Lamb goes through and onto his lap down towards turn 1. Let's ride on board with him this time. You can see you have to get right over that curb, and it is a very difficult turn. It feels so narrow as you go through this section. That's turn 3, the hairpin of turn 3, up towards turn 4. Very easy to lose it on the exit there. You can see him readjusting his steering wheel as he went through there. Let's get rid of the telemetry so you can see his steering wheel properly. You can see the adjustments as they go through those hairpins and struggle with the rear end. Lion Lamb looks like he has a decent amount of control. You can hear how far they have to get off the throttle through that hairpin, and how much elevation change there is on this track. And this corner in particular is so difficult because you don't see it coming, you don't see your braking point. Lion Lamb doing an incredible job in the second sector, and getting the fastest second sector of all according to the map, although we have had issues with that before, so I wouldn't believe it too much. But this looks like a good lap by the Lion Lamb. It looks like his setup is geared more towards the windy sections of the track. As he comes through the final turn of turn 15 up towards the start finish line, he goes into 10th place, a second up from his previous time. So he had a lot of time to catch up and hasn't quite managed to pull enough back. And you saw there how easy it was to invalidate a lap. He just crossed the white line going through turn 2, and that was the invalidation of this particular lap. So let's see who else is on an outlap. Landmine going on another outlap with a minute and a half to go. This will likely be his last flying lap once he crosses the line, so let's follow him around as he fights for that first place spot. Right on board with him because it's interesting to see the different steering inputs. I believe Lion Lamb is playing on a controller, and you can see that with the twitchy movement on a wheel, which I believe Landmine is racing on. You'll see that the movements will be a lot more smooth, and you'll see the advantage that gives. Oh, that is not going to be good. Michael coming out, and that's already invalidated the lap there. So that is really unfortunate for Landmine. Michael coming out of the pits and nowhere for him to really go to get out of the way. So we'll follow KQ, who is also on a flying lap. I think he definitely also has a steering wheel, and you can see how much smoother the inputs are. Cutting that curb on the left as far as possible into this horrible corner of corner 8, keeping his gear high so that he doesn't lose the rear end through there. Up the hill to the blind 10-11, this is 10 and this is 11, hits that curb on the right hand side quite hard. That will have given him a traction brake, which is not ideal, but let's see if it works out for him as he goes through 13 and towards 14, through the very long corner 14. This is obviously where the drain cover came up in the real life race last year, I think it was, through 15 up towards the start finish line, across the start finish line, only good enough for 7th place, not making too much improvement on his previous time. So we have Venom and Humid still on laps. Humid crossing now and going up to 2nd place, a very good lap to put him up above Landmine, who has not had a good session. Venom still on lap in the Aston Martin as he goes through turn 9 and up towards 10 to 11, which is the start of that downhill. That keeps it nice and steady through that corner. Beats his previous time in the middle sectors. He loses a little bit of traction on the exit of turn 13. He goes through 14 nice and smooth, gets to the outside, takes a lot of curve on the outside, which is good. If you take too little, you end up spinning up the outside tire. gets all the way to the right hand side to shorten the distance, and that helps him get to second place. A great lap from Venom to go up to second place with 1:16.822. So as we stand, we have Sebi out in first place, Venom in second, Humid in third, not showing a checkered flag on Humid for whatever reason. I don't think he crossed the line before the time finished, so I'm not sure why that's not showing a checkered flag there. Landmine in fourth place will be disappointed, especially after being blocked in turn 1. Sketchy Dude in fifth, Michael in sixth, the blocker from turn 1. Again, this pit lane is very difficult. You can't really see over the hill, so people come up through that pit straight so quickly. You cannot see up the hill from the pit lane, and so you end up being spat out into their path with nowhere to go. And I think that's literally what happened. There were a couple of situations of that the last time, or the time before out at the track. So, as I said, Sebi in first, Venom in second, Humid in third, Landmine fourth, Sketchy in fifth, Michael in sixth, Microstatic in 7th, TJ in 8th, Arc in 9th. Good performance from him to get there. Lion Lamb in 10th, Moss in 11th, G-Funk in 12th, Lucius 13th, Gur 14th, Alicia in 15th. Everyone seems to have qualified on the soft tire, so there aren't going to be split strategies. So let's see what the guys and girls can do. Weather looks a little bit overcast, so it doesn't look like there's any rain, at least for the beginning of the race. The pit lane does look dry, which I'm sure a few people will be happy to see. A couple of people calling out for Humid to show his pace. He definitely has it, but hasn't shown it in the last couple of races, or didn't show it in the last race. So let's see if he can have a better race this time. We've seen him do it, especially in the dry. And here we go. 3, 4, 5 lights are on, and long wait, but away they go. There we are. Slow getaway by Venom. Sebi getting a great start there. Humid taking advantage of Venom, trying to cut off Landmine. Unfortunately, Venom comes across and Humid catches him on the way in. That is likely to be some floor damage for Humid. Venom drops all the way to the back of the pack. That is not a great start by him. Michael has taken advantage of the contact and ended up in third. Landmine sitting in fourth place. Sketchy Dude in fifth. Microstatic and INTJ trading places as they come around the hairpin. Microstatic and his teammate now alongside each other in Russia. That did not end well, so let's see if they can keep it on the track this time. As they head through turn 8, TJ overcooks the exit and goes around. As we said, we're likely to see many spins at that corner, and we have our first on lap 1. So as everyone has started to sort themselves out, we see Gur and Venom getting past G-Funk. G-Funk looks like he is missing a wing, so he has obviously had some sort of contact, probably with another of the players, as I didn't see him go off the track anywhere. So he is struggling to get around. And is that rain? That is not something that people are going to be wanting to see, because that is in fact rain coming, and everyone is on the soft tires. So this is going to be interesting to see how many people can get through this first lap without spinning out. That rain is definitely not something that people will have wanted to see. So Humid and Sebi out in front as they go through the hairpin of turn 5. You can see everyone having to get off the throttle out of those corners, as those soft tires are not going to like the fact that there is moisture building up on the track. Going through turn 8 is going to be even more hazardous this time, as the track starts to starts to get water. You can see the textures changing on the track, a slight sheen going up, and that is going to suggest that people are going to have to go onto those intermediate tires as soon as possible. Venom unfortunately has not managed to keep it going. He has DNF'd coming out of turn turn 9. That is really unfortunate for him. That has brought out the virtual safety car though. So let's see what people do. I imagine everyone will be heading into the pits to get rid of those soft tires, which means that we are going to have some double stacks. Let's see who the first is likely to be. That is likely to be KQ Microstatic and Lion Lamb. That is definitely not what they wanted to do. Being teammates, they will be double stacking. They would have wanted to be further apart from each other. Oh, and that's going to be a wait for Lion Lamb. He is going to lose a few positions as KQ Microstatic managed to get into the pits first. So Sebi coming out at the front of the pack, Humid in second, Landmine in third. Yep, there he comes out of the pits. Sketchy Dude getting up to fourth, Michael in fifth, KQ Microstatic in sixth, Moss in seventh, Ark eighth, Lion Lamb 9th, Lucius is in 10th, right after I said that he hadn't joined us for a while. Gur in 11th, Alicia 12th, I'm TJ in 13th, and G-Funk in 14th. So that is not a bad thing for those who had issues in the first couple of laps, because that has brought the pack back together. The pack separated by 27 seconds. It feels like a lot. But it's a lot better than a couple of people were doing. So let's see what Sebi can do. He showed us last time out that he was rapid in the rain. Let's see if he can keep it together with all the elevation changes and this very technical track. Obviously Brazil is also quite technical, so I'm sure he will be happy about this. Let's see who also has managed to adapt their setups to the rain, if anyone has. If you don't and it does rain too hard, you start aquaplaning and then you lose all traction through various sections of the track. It is really horrible to actually try and do. Humid behind Sebi by just under a second. Obviously with the rain out, it is unlikely that DRS will not be enabled, so everyone has to try and bunch up and pass on their own merit. So Humid getting up close to Sebi through the first couple of corners. Sebi looking like he may have gone a little wide there, but Humid not taking advantage, going a very aggressive line, which doesn't necessarily mean the fastest line through there when you aren't fighting someone for the position. It doesn't seem to have affected him too much. Still 8th, 10th behind Sebi, but he does seem to be catching a little bit, so he does seem to be a little bit more comfortable with the wet on this track than his opponent ahead. Further down in the order, Landmine looks like he might just be biding his time with a 1.8 second deficit. He is dropping that quite a lot, so 2 out in front. Definitely stamping their authority onto this race. Sketchy Dude 3.2 seconds behind Landmine, Michael 1.4 seconds behind him, KQ Microstatic 1.8, Arc 5.3 seconds back, with Moss coming up behind him and Lion Lamb coming up on Moss. So this looks like the first place that's going to have some sort of action. In the meantime, Sebi has pulled a 1.3 second lead over Humid, so has had a good final sector as they go through into turn 1. Lion Lamb is still on Moss's gearbox as they head down the start finish straight. He is likely to try and move into turn 1. This is a dangerous place to try and move, especially in the wet, but let's see if they both get through fine. They both get through fine. That is a very nice and clean move. Good racing by both of them, but Moss does lose the position. Let's see if he will be able to get that position back, although Lucius is right behind him with designs of his own. Moss falls over a second back already, and Lucius goes for a lunge down the inside, decides better of it, pulls out, and round the hairpin of 5 stays behind Moss. So out in front, Humid has managed to pick up what I believe is a 3-second penalty for track limits. Let's go see. 3 seconds. G-Funk sitting on 9 seconds already, obviously struggling with track limits, and the wet looks like he has just gone into the pits again, so that may have been switching onto wet tires, and he has actually spun already coming out of the pits on those wet tires. So track possibly not dry, not wet enough for the wets, but him struggling on the intermediates and thinking he's got nothing to lose. Lucius is now once again trying to get up right there behind Moss. 0.3 of a second, really up close and personal. G-Funk now retiring from the session, and it looks like he may have had contact with Humid, who has spun off at the same spot. Has had to give up a bunch of positions, so that is not good for Humid. Doesn't look like he's got any damage, may have just taken avoiding action, and has now ended up down in 6th. Ooh, that is not good to see. Looks like he is struggling with the balance of his car, and maybe struggling with the wet a little more than it appeared. Humid down now into 6th place. Moss has left the session, so I wonder if that is a connection issue, which has dropped him out of the session. So the VYBN guys not having a good race so far. Moss dropping in 9th and having left the session. Lucius is likely to take him quite soon. There it is, the ghost has happened, and Lucius goes through without any sort of issue, and Humid possibly having to take evasive action around G-Funk and losing a number of positions because of that. So let's see how we are doing. KQ Microstatic is coming up behind Michael, as ARC is the latest person to spin coming out of turn 14. So that's unfortunate for him. KQ Microstatic looking at the back of Michael's car and looking for a way past. Currently 8 tenths behind, but he was up to 5 just now, back up down to 6 tenths. So let's see what he can do as they go down the back straight. Not close enough to try a lunge. Michael seems to have a little bit lower downforce, which makes him a little bit faster on the straights. So KQ is going to have to get right up behind him to be able to get past. It looks like IMTJ has managed to get past Gur in 11th and 12th. And he will be wanting to get up the road and chase down ARC, who is the next car for him. KQ sitting with a penalty, probably a 3-second I think I saw, so he will want to get past Michael as soon as possible so he can get after the guys up ahead and create a gap between himself and Michael. So heading around the final corner, we have KQ Microstatic 7 tenths behind Michael. Looks like he did get either a better exit or is using some of his ERS as Michael tries to break the toe down that front straight. Behind them, Humid has caught up as well, was within a second for a while there. KQ Microstatic going in a little hot into turn 1 and losing traction, and that will have affected him, although not too badly. So Michael obviously did not go through turns 1, 2 and 3 as well as he would have hoped. Microstatic still right behind him, and Humid right behind microstatic. We have a change further back. Arc and Moss swapping positions. I have not seen Moss come back, so I wonder if that's still his bot. Arc now the latest to get a 3-second penalty. So Humid racing right behind KQ Microstatic. You saw just a little bit of a lost traction there, and he has already dropped back about 3/10 from where he was when I switched onto his point of view. Moss has just rejoined, so he will be looking to make up positions once again. Looks like, is that Lucius or Alicia? That is Lucius, who has spun in the Alpine coming out of turn 8. So back to Humid. Moss has dropped once again, so that is really unfortunate for him. Back to Humid. He is following the other guys into the pits, and a little bit of a touch there. Hopefully it doesn't look like that has caused a penalty for KQ Microstatic, so that is quite lucky. But a little bit of a touch there. Hopefully he hasn't damaged his wing. I don't see a wing there in the change, so that is just a new set of tires. Everyone looks like they are going onto the wet tires, so let's have a look. It definitely looks like people are deciding that the wet tires are actually the ones to go with, and I quite agree. All that standing water that you see there, those puddles, that means that the intermediates are going to be starting to struggle. They are going to be aquaplaning on their own, even ignoring the flat bottoms of the cars. So as you hit those, your traction will break, and you will have a much harder time to keep it on the track. So Sebi, Ladmine, and Sketchy Dude, the top 3 have not gone in for extra tires. Alicia has not gone in for extra tires either. So those 4 are the only ones that are still on the intermediate tires. Their lap times will probably start to drop as traction breaks, and we'll probably see Sebi peel into the pits now as he comes around the final corner. No, he believes that he is still on the correct tire, so let's see. Landmine is going into the pit. Sketchy Dude is also going into the pit. So Sebi, the only one deciding to stay out on these intermediate tires. So we'll follow him around just to see what sort of traction loss he gets, and if we can see what sort of time difference he gets to his best sector times. 1.2 seconds down in the first sector on its own from his best time. Obviously we did start this race on soft tires, so that will probably have been when the best times were set. But 1.2 seconds is still a chunk of time down, and we'll see whether this was the right decision or not when he does eventually decide to pit, and whether Ladmine and Sketchy Dude are able to make an impact on his lead. Looks like he is being very careful through here. 6.3 seconds down in the second sector, so that is not great for him to see. Alicia has now gone into the pits, obviously finding that this is not the right tire choice. Sebi going around the final sector through turn 14. Looks like he is going quite slowly, battling to keep on the track. Through 15, and let's see, has he decided to go into the pits this time? No, he's going around once again, even though he is 10.8 seconds down on his best lap. It does not look... Apologies, I am just going to deal with some spam. So, Ladmine does not look like he is making too much headway on Sebi's lead. So I wonder if Sebi is actually managing to keep those tires working for him better than I have expected. So as we saw with Sebi's laps, he was about 6.3 seconds down at the end of the second sector. So as we follow Ladmine around, let's see how far down he is after his second sector. And we should be able to then compare and figure out whether Sebi is on the correct tires or whether Ladmine made the correct choice and in going onto those wets. As he crosses, he is only 3.2 seconds down on his best time. Sebi has now peeled into the pits. So we are about to see whether Sebi's gamble paid off or whether it put him in a worse position. As he goes through the pits, does Ladmine get onto the pit straight at the very least? Sebi has now pulled into his pit box. Ladmine onto the pit straight and will be going full speed as Sebi comes out of the pits. This is going to be very close if they do come together at all. Ladmine, obviously with warmer tires, goes through turn 1 and Sebi is right in front of him with those cold tires, but manages to keep the position. So Sebi comfortable enough on those intermediates in these very wet conditions to have run them a little longer, and has now gotten a little bit more of a buffer over Ladmine as Ladmine gets a 3-second penalty for track limits. So Sebi controlling this race out in front, as we kind of expected he would when the rain started. Ladmine running in second, doing a good job of keeping up with Sebi. Sketchy in third, 6.9 seconds down now, so not having the greatest time in this full wet conditions, with Michael, Humid and KQ Microstatic right behind him, all on those wet tires. KQ Microstatic only very close to the back of Humid now. Will probably be looking to get past him on the pit straight as Humid falls a little further back from Michael. Meanwhile, in 10th position, Lucius is having a look at Moss, who I do believe has returned, so that is an actual battle going on. But let's stick with KQ Microstatic as he is within or just outside of 5/10 now. Seems to be getting a good exit out of turn 15, does get a good exit out of turn 15 right behind Humid as they go down the pit straight. That slipstream will be doing him some favors, but unfortunately not close enough to try and get past on this particular lap. Michael was quite close to Sketchy Dude as well, but also not able to make a move or make it stick. Sector 3, we have Ark and Lucius, who appear to have come together. Front wings appear to be fine on both sides. Not sure if they came together or whether they maybe had some sort of other issue, but that has dropped Ark and Lucius down behind Gur, so not great for either of them. That coming together causing a little bit of a problem. KQ Microstatic is now sitting behind the Lion Lamb, so I think he had some sort of issue or something that happened while he was off camera and has now dropped back behind his teammate, quite far off the guys he was fighting out ahead, Sketchy Dude, Michael and Humid. It will be interesting to see what happened there later on. So Humid now the closest battle, Humid and Michael, other than Lucius and Ark, who have come together once. Looks like they are heading through into the windy second sector. So we'll stick with Humid and Michael for now, as Humid gets a decent exit out of that final corner, but Michael gets a good one as well. The slipstream is doing enough for Humid to pull within 5/10, but not enough for him to get alongside as they head towards turn 1. So while these two fight, I'm going to keep an eye on the timings of Ark and Lucius, but this is the closest battle on the field at the moment, so we'll stay here. Humid going wide out of turn 4, struggling a little bit with traction, getting a good exit despite that. Possibly because of that, but then overcooking the exit out of the hairpin of 5 and losing a chunk of time. So that is one of the dangers of turn 5. It's very easy to get on the power a little bit too early and lose the back end, as we saw there. Humid obviously pushing his car as hard as he possibly can. So as we go through turn 15 once again and onto the pit straight, we have Humid, losing it once again, coming out of turn 15, manages to keep enough speed to not lose too much on his opponent up ahead, but spinning your tires up like that will be causing increased wear, and Michael is pretty good at keeping his tires going for a lot longer than people expect. So those little losses of traction and spin ups of, yeah, there we go. Humid starting to struggle with his tires a little bit possibly, and as you saw there, getting another 3-second penalty. I do believe he is on 6 seconds now. Yes, he is. So Michael just has to stay ahead of him, and it doesn't even need to really stay ahead of him to keep the position, but I'm sure Michael will be looking at that sketchy dude ahead of him, less than a second up the road, who has a 3-second penalty as well. So if Michael can keep it clean for the rest of the race and keep Humid behind him, he should move up into 3rd place and the last of the podium positions. So I'm sure that will be going through Michael's mind as they head around the track. The rain still coming down in buckets and the track getting progressively more wet. It does look like there are more puddles on the track, and that will obviously affect the traction even further. Even with the wet tires, it does still affect everything. Lucius, the latest to get another 3-second penalty, taking him up to 9 seconds as Humid still behind Michael, just over 6/10 for a moment there, now up to just over 7/10, going through the first 3 corners. Sketchy Dude still just out in front, possibly keeping an eye on it, but not pushing too hard, trying to keep his race together, especially because a 4th place position is not necessarily the worst thing when you're sitting with 3 seconds of penalties. Sebi out in front, dominating the race so far. Ladmine in 2nd, quite comfortable, especially since Sketchy has a 3-second penalty as well behind him and is 7.5 seconds back. Michael, the only one here that will be looking to gain a position through penalties. Humid 6 seconds of penalties, so if Lionlamb can keep it clean and gain 7 seconds, he should be able to jump that, but that is a very tall order. Lucius has now retired from the session. He is heading into the pits, so I think that was an intentional retirement. Not sure if he maybe had too much damage for this to be worthwhile, but Lucius retiring in the pits as Humid comes onto the pit straight once again, 6/10 behind Michael and looking to pass. Michael obviously getting a decent exit out of turn 15, and Humid once again not able to close that gap and get past his opponent, throwing himself into turns 1 and 2 and once again losing traction a little bit through those corners and having to correct. So back through the field, the other close-ish battles are Ark and Gur, as you can see, quite close on the field, but just over a second apart. KQ Microstatic and the Lionlamb, the 2 Ferraris, racing in formation at this point. KQ 1.5 seconds down from his teammate. It gets a little closer and then gets further down to 1.5 again. So they are trading some time a little bit. Not having the greatest race for either of them, but at least still on the track. With this rain, it is treacherous. Humid once again looking at the back of Michael's Williams, and will probably be hoping to do something through this final couple of corners and onto the pit straight. but too far back once again. Just over 7/10 back, so he is unlikely to be able to do anything as he goes down the pit straight. Michael trying to break the toe there once again. So down the back straight, Humid is now only 3/10 behind Michael. So he is definitely getting a little bit more racy, a little bit more aggressive. Still a long way to go as we're only on lap 18 of 33, and that is Alicia getting out of the way quite nicely as the guys go through turn 6 and 7. Humid and Michael obviously fighting for position as they lapped Alicia there. Going through the final sector, Humid is staying very close to Michael. He will be struggling in that dirty air, and we have seen him throw that car around in the lower downforce from the car in front, but he seems to have kept it together this lap and is now only 4/10 behind Michael as they come onto the pit straight. So let's see if that is close enough as Michael tries to break the toe, pulls towards the right hand side. Humid coming up behind him, getting as close to him as possible in that slipstream, but once again just not quite close enough to make a move down towards turn 1. However, we do have the second pit straight, the back straight coming up. As Humid overcooks it, heading in towards turn 4. That will have caused him to drop back quite a lot, down to 1.2 seconds, but it has also caused Michael to have a little bit of a moment and pushed him outside of track limits. So Michael now up to a 3-second penalty. That will be great news for that sketchy dude who also has the 3-second penalty. So Michael now has to actually fight for the position on merit. Moss, in the meantime, sitting down in 9th, has had a spin coming out of turn 15, and that has put him in striking range of Gur and Ark as they are coming down the pit straight. Let's see what they do heading into turn 1. Looks like Moss has managed to get up to speed quickly enough that he's not under threat. Gur and Ark close together on the track. So we're going to stick with them for a little bit until things up at the front heat up a little bit again. Ark only 3/10 behind his opponent coming onto the back straight. That slipstream will be good, maybe enough. No, not this time. Looks towards the inside, but decides better of it. Not quite close enough to make a move, having to take a different line through the hairpin of 5. I wonder if that was in order to avoid a collision with Gur, or if he just prefers that line. But going around on lap 20, Ark 6/10 behind his opponent Gur. Gur only 9/10 behind Moss. Moss, who has had a sketchy race with the multiple disconnections, but now seems to be pulling it together a little bit, sitting down in 9th, so not ideal, but at least it is still a point scoring position. He is scoring 2 points at this point, while Gur is scoring just 1. Ark just outside the points in 11th place, but also with a 3-second penalty. So even if he does get past Gur and Moss, he'd still have to get up the road 3 seconds from both of them to be able to do anything with that. Gur going an odd line onto the pit straight, but it does look like Ark tried to match the line, possibly to try and get into that slipstream, and that has ended up slowing him down a little bit. So that may have been a good little moment of tactics. In the meantime, back out at front, Humid has once again caught up to the back of Michael, heading through turns 14 and 15 now. Humid obviously 3 seconds more penalties than Michael, so needs to get past him soon, as there are 12 laps to go. 12 laps to go. 12 laps for him to try and pull a 3-second lead out of Michael. With the way that they are racing at the moment, I do not know if that is possible, but I'm sure he will have that at the back of his mind as he goes through turn 4 and or up through turn 4. Looks like we have a yellow flag. That may have just been a back marker being passed. KQ Microstatic actually ahead of the Lion Lamb now, so he is making his way back up the field. 14 seconds back from Humid, so it'll be interesting to see if he is able to catch before the end of the race. Arc has now spun coming out of the hairpin of 13, heading down towards 14. Again, no damage to the front wing, so not sure if he did have some sort of contact or was maybe just pushing a little bit too hard, but that has put him out of the fight with Gur. Alrighty, so Humid once again struggling through that those first couple of corners, throwing his car a little bit too violently into the corner and losing traction, going outside of track limits once again, and is now got a 9-second penalty. That means that KQ Microstatic has that much less time to try and need to catch up rather. He has already made up 5/10 of a second since I mentioned him just now. He was 14 seconds behind. So KQ Microstatic definitely does have what it takes to catch up to Humid to within 6 seconds, which will allow him to take that position off his McLaren opponent. Once again, we have a McLaren off. I do believe that is Arc. Arc struggling in the wet through that third sector, comes back onto the track. Sebi gets past him without too much issue, so staying on the outside in order to let the faster cars past, and that will put him down into a lap down, I do believe. Pulling across to the right hand side there, possibly to try and get out of the way of anyone else behind, or maybe even just losing a little bit more control. Sebi running a very clean race out at the front in the wet, seems to be just putting in lap after lap without too much issues, hasn't gotten a penalty so far. I don't believe he even has any warnings at this point, according to my telemetry system, but I'm not sure if I entirely believe that. But Sebi running a very clean race in the Haas and currently sitting out ahead, 4 seconds ahead of Ladmine already. So the pack spreading out quite a lot now. We've got 4 seconds separating Ladmine and Sebi. We've got 4 seconds separating Sketchy and Ladmine, almost 5 seconds now. Almost 4 seconds separating Michael and Sketchy. Humid just over a second back from Michael, although he is trying to change that, it appears. KQ Microstatic 15.7 seconds back now, so he has not had a good lap, or otherwise Humid has had a couple of very good laps, as he comes within 5/10 of Michael once again. Lion Lamb 1.2 seconds behind his teammate. TJ 16 seconds back from Lion Lamb. Moss 25 seconds back from him. Gur 1.5 seconds back from Moss, so that might still become a battle going later into this race. Arc in 11th place, 21 seconds back after a couple of bad spins in the third sector, and Alicia just keeping going in last place, 40 seconds back from Arc, but keeping going, which at this point in this wet on this track is better than can be said for certain other people, myself included. I don't think I would be able to do this. And we have Moss, the latest person to spin. So Moss spins, allowing Go past. As I said, there was a chance that battle would come to pass later on. We see Moss spin out and Gur take that position without a fight. So back to Humid. Humid has literally just been struggling with traction, fighting Michael ahead of him. The dirty air between the dirty air and the wet track, he's pushing a little bit too hard, accelerating a little bit too early in the corners, and it has led to him sliding like that, and often sliding outside of the track limits, hence the 9-second penalties. Those are all track limits penalties, so you can't even pit to get rid of them, unfortunately. He is running a decent race. He's been the person able to fight the most, definitely causing some grey hairs for Michael ahead of him. So let's keep following him around as Ark goes into the pits once again. Humid going quite wide out of that final corner again, and losing some time to Michael ahead of him. So riding on board, oh, that looks like Ark may have spun coming out of the pits this time. Thank you. The Ark looks like he may have spun coming out of the pits this time, and that is really unfortunate, especially since I think he may have pit for damage. If he has spun out into a wall, that would have been more damage, so that will have invalidated his pit stop, unfortunately. Humid going through the motions, trying to get up close back to Michael, 6/10 back, so not far, but once again struggling through that downhill corner of 11 to keep the traction and the nose of the car pointed in the right direction, taking a lot of curb on the inside and outside there, which with wet being as it is, it is even more slippery on the curbs in this game than if it were dry, and they're already slippery in the dry. So losing a little bit of time there, but still, ooh, that is a big spin, and that is not going to end well. He has retired from the session. That is really not great for Humid. He has spun out, just pushing a little bit too hard, coming out of turn 15 and on board as he goes into the wall with an immense impact. That is really unfortunate. So Michael, having survived the onslaught, sits in 4th place with his 3 seconds of penalties. No one behind him able to cause him too much grief. So he will be breathing a huge sigh of relief and will be focusing on his own race from here until the end in 7 laps time. So as we stand, we have Sebi out in front running clean race, the only person on the track without a penalty at this point. Ladmine in second, 3-second penalty, 4.5 seconds back. From this point onwards, everyone is on equal penalties, Humid having had the most number of penalties. So Sketchy is in third, almost 5 seconds back from Ladmine. Michael, 4.6 seconds back from Sketchy. KQ, 17 seconds back from Michael. Lion Lamb, 2 seconds back from his teammate. IMTJ, 15.2 seconds back from Lion Lamb. Gur, 32 seconds back from Mercedes. Moss in 9th place in the Red Bull, 5 seconds back. Ark breaking the very pretty pattern of threes, getting another 3-second penalty, up to 6 seconds of penalties, almost 2 minutes back from Moss, and Alicia running behind Ark, 3 seconds back. So I believe Ark may have had another spin, which has put Alicia within 2.5 seconds of Ark. Lion Lamb, in the meantime, has caught up to his teammate, is within 0.5 of a second going through turn 1. So let's stick on board with these two as KQ goes a little wide there. Lion Lamb taking a very lean run through that corner, gets to the right hand side. KQ defending the middle of the track, which is the right place to put your car, especially heading down towards this corner, goes a little bit wide of the apex. Lion Lamb hits the apex, gets a little bit of a better exit out of 5, through 6, Lion Lamb will go through, and that puts him ahead of his teammate KQ Microstatic. I wonder if that is tire overheat or what happened there, because that happened it evolved very quickly. KQ Microstatic now down in 6th place, 6 tenths down from his teammate. Will definitely be looking to take that position back. I know these guys enjoy racing each other. Oh, we have ARC having spun once again, and that has allowed Alicia to get past him. Alicia up into 10th place, the last of the point-paying positions. So Alicia getting that 10th position from ARC after ARC has spun once again. It looks like further back we have Sebi passing Moss and heading up the road there. So we saw the Haas of Sebi going beyond Moss, and that means that Moss is now at least a lap down. KQ Microstatic and Lion Lamb have split up a little bit further, so it looks like KQ may be struggling, possibly with the tires, possibly just with the conditions. It does look like it is starting to rain a little harder than it was just now, so that is always going to cause even less traction. And those moments when the traction changes, they're not as easy to spot as you would expect. Not that anything is easy to spot in this weather. It doesn't show it on the spectator cameras. However, in game, if you are behind another car, you can hardly see. Even if you're not behind another car, with this amount of rain, your visor is so wet, and it is very difficult to see what's coming up or what's ahead of you, how far you are from the car ahead. And it does make things quite difficult to judge, especially with a technical track such as this. It's difficult to pick your braking points in the wet, especially when the conditions are changing. And because you can't necessarily feel the car around you and the way that it's moving around, it's much more difficult to actually feel the track and where the track is as far as traction in the games. So 4 laps to go as KQ and Lion Lamb cross the start-finish straight. At the back we have ARC coming up on Alicia. They are the closest battle, so we're going to follow them around a couple of times as they go down towards 15 through 15 and heading down towards the pit straight. It looks like ARC takes a slightly better line through the corner. Alicia trying to break the toe as they head down the pit straight. ARC getting onto the right hand side, the inside of the turn 1, not taking the greatest line through it, coming from the middle of the track, but enough to make the position stick. And through 3, ARC will now be ahead of Alicia. We'll keep watching this as Alicia comes onto the back straight, but it looks like she is falling back down to 8 tenths already behind ARC, and down to a second there as they go through the hairpin of turn 5. So Alicia struggling a little bit in the wet, but still keeping going. Anything can happen before the end of the race, and we could absolutely have another retirement, which would put her into the points if she manages to keep it on the track. Also keep in mind, ARC does have 6 seconds of penalties to Alicia's 3, so if she manages to keep within 3 seconds of ARC, of the McLaren, she will be able to take that position, although she has already dropped to 3.5 seconds. So ARC pushing quite hard. Obviously all those pit stops has helped with that. As far as stops are concerned, everyone has done 2 stops other than ARC, who has done 3. And as far as tires are concerned, Sebi with the newest tires. Obviously when he went in for those wet tires, he actually stayed out a few laps longer than everyone else, and so that would be why his tires are so much younger than some of the other guys. Ladmine and Sketchy missed the pit entrance when they went around one more time on those intermediate tires, and everyone else from there. Oh, we have a spin in the background. I do believe that is IMTJ. It hasn't said he's retired, but let's keep an eye on Sketchy and Ladmine, as they have actually started to come a little bit closer. So let's see if Sketchy can close those 2.7 seconds in the last couple of laps. Ladmine has been pushing fairly hard. I think he has been trying to catch up to Sebi, so it's possible that his tires are struggling a little bit more than Sketchy's. So 2.7 seconds it was just now, 2.5 seconds now. Let's keep an eye on this. It looks like it may just be certain portions of the track where Sketchy is a little bit faster, although he does look like he's pushing, so let's fingers crossed for a last lap battle. It is a very, very, very tall order, but stranger things have happened. This is Formula One in the wet at Portugal, and anything can happen. So Sebi has gone on to the penultimate lap, as Sketchy is 2.4 seconds behind, made up another tenth of a second, not making up time quite quickly enough to challenge Ladmine, but that is not to say that it won't happen. Ladmine now coming up on a back marker in the form of Gur, so that may hold him up a little bit and cause a little bit of dirty air. It could also help down the straights a little bit with a slipstream, but that will remain to be seen. Ladmine going through the hairpin of 5, Sketchy now 2 seconds behind him. So Ladmine obviously feeling the effects of the dirty air from Gur in front of him, especially going into these corners. It's difficult for Gur to get out of the way. Not that he has to, ghosting is on, but there will still be the effects of the dirty air. I think. I'm not quite sure what effect ghosting has on the aerophysics of the cars. I do believe that there is still slipstreaming, so I do believe that there is still dirty air. So it's possible that that actually affected Ladmine and has pulled Sketchy within 2 seconds. As Sebi goes on to the final lap of the race, we'll actually follow him around for this lap and see how he is doing it. So going a little bit onto the curbs, but not too much, just dealing with some more spam. Sebi just keeping it absolutely smooth as he heads through those corners. Down into the hairpin of 5, brakes nice and early, almost brakes before he can see the corner, so knows this track very well, especially in the wet it looks like. Goes onto the curbs a lot more than I would have expected, going into the horrible turn of 8, gets around it, goes all the way down to 2nd, but keeps his revs low just to make sure that he doesn't lose traction. Through into 10, 11, obviously those braking points you can't see at the best of times. Arc spinning once again out of turn 14. Through the hairpin of 13, just kissing that inside curb. Through 14, down into 15. Onto the pit straight. Sebi, having dominated this race, goes across the finish line in 1st position. Ladmine behind him manages to keep ahead of Sketchy 1.6 seconds, so Sketchy really did push hard in those last couple of laps, but not quite hard enough to actually get up to the back of Ladmine. Michael coming in 4th position. Lion Lamb and KQ Microstatic will likely finish in 5th and 6th as they come through turn 14. Only TJ behind them is still actually racing. Gur and Moss have already crossed for the final time. Ark and Alicia a lap down. KQ giving us a little bit of a donut show on the pit straight there, as he just has some fun on crossing the pit lane, the start-finish line. I am TJ far enough behind that he doesn't need to worry too much about that. And finally Ark and Alicia coming through the final couple of corners just to finish everything off. Ark obviously managed to put himself in the wall on the start-finish line. So that is the end of round 11. Actually, I think I said round 10 everywhere, but I do believe this is actually round 11 of No, it's round 11 if you take our double race as separate races. It is actually round 10 in the schedule. So it brings round 10 to the end of its course. An interesting race starting on those soft tires, moving to the intermediates, only a couple of laps in, which always leads to some interesting racing. And as we saw, a lot of penalties, so many penalties being distributed all over the place, thanks to the wet weather and the changing conditions. Very well done to Sebi, the only person not to pick up a penalty. So that was a great race by him. As you can see, one set of tires for each for Sebi, Ladmine, Sketchy, Michael, Lion Lamb, KQ Microstatic, and I am TJ. Gur starting on the mediums, that was ill-advised, we now know. Ark having to change a couple of times, Lucius having to change a couple of times. Venom not having a great time, having been knocked out very early on. So, thank you for joining us, everyone, and I hope you have a great evening further. We will be back next week racing in Imola, if I remember correctly. So join us for round 11, the penultimate round of our championship, to see where things go. Thank you and good evening.